Heck yes! There's so much here, you guys. Freaking ridiculously good. This is nuts. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's your girl Rosalie. Welcome to the Ultimate World Music Reaction channel, all about music and psychology. I'm so honored you stopped by. I want to check out another one by REN. Recently discovered him thanks to you guys and listened to his song Hi REN. Lots more that you guys suggested I should listen to and check out, and I plan to do so because he's a musical genius and I absolutely loved what he did with Hi REN. Now he released a song called Sick Boy. Boy spelled as in B-O-I. So I'm excited to see what he does here, what this is about. I don't know what to expect. The thumbnail already gives off a very interesting vibe fitting to what I saw in Hi REN. That basement vibe, eerie room, flickering neon lights, broken walls, and him sitting there in, I'm not sure, is it a hospital gown? Is it just regular clothes, but looks like a patient? I don't know what to expect or what we're going to have to talk about here. I hope I don't miss too much. Let's dive in. Here we go.
Hi Ren, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for seeing me.
Looking at your file here, it seems there's a very apparent interplay with your emotional state and your physical body. Have you ever heard of the trauma response?
I don't think so.
Basically, our bodies can get stuck in a negative feedback loop.
Okay, slow down. Snap. This guy is a freaking genius. There's so much. Okay, like I already said, that basement, the flickering lights, just that eerie vibe, cracked walls. Crazy how he's starting with that, which almost at first I thought it sounded like he needs to vomit, right? Like he's about to hurl, like when you're sick to your body. But then more of a, growl as if you are having some type of mental breakdown or some type of mental disorder. And then him suddenly switching so quickly from that, psychotic, mentally ill vibe to, hi, I don't think so, right? Which we saw in Hi REN. Also funny or interesting that he starts with Hi REN, the lady is greeting him. Hi REN, little shout out there to his big one, Hi REN. I don't want to get into it too much. I want to just explore it and experience it with you, but I may take notes as we're going through this so I don't forget too much. But already the way that she's like talking to him as if she's some type of therapist or psychologist or counselor, but almost like reading off of a paper, which, sometimes when you're in a session, you have to take notes and whatnot, and it helps to let the person know that that's what you're about to do so it doesn't feel so strange. But it definitely feels less personal than when you're having a conversation and you're not well and you're trying to make eye contact. Gives off this really weird, impersonal, I'm looking at my notes more than I'm looking at you vibe. Real quick, we know, or those of you who know REN know this, he was diagnosed with Lyme disease and was bedridden due to it. But I think you guys let me know, or I read somewhere that he had been misdiagnosed for a while, for a long time. Almost half a decade? Almost a half a decade, misdiagnosed, and then they discovered it's Lyme disease, which is crazy. I mean, that will come with a whole host of not only physical issues when you're misdiagnosed and on a treatment plan that it doesn't address what you actually are struggling with, but then you add in the psychological and emotional effects that come out of this. But let's dive in. Pardon me if I take notes on the side. I just don't want to miss anything, but I also don't want to talk too much during the video. So here we go, and I'm gonna start over. You ready?
Subconscious can repeat patterns from the past.
That beat goes hard, by the way.
Which can have a pretty drastic downstream effect on our biology. Essentially, your mind is making you sick.
Sick boy, bitten by a tick boy, looking for that fix boy, anabolic steroids, stem cell, poster boy, pass out, white noise, quick fix, snake oil, I'm about to break boy. Oh, what a shame, he's in pain, have another go, take another pill, here, take a couple more, let's see how you're doing in another week or so, you'll be feeling worse when the side effects will show, derealization, medical patient, losing patience with the process, walking hand in hand with Satan, complications with the medication, inflammation, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration, drown, soccer, drown, soccer, drown, soccer, drown, I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground, I've been screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound, I've been looking for a way out, but I always seem to drown.
Is this all making sense, Ren?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. What I propose we do is we try to pinpoint the exact experiences from the past that are keeping you stuck. What can you tell me about your childhood?
I can't really think.
It's okay if nothing comes up right away. What I'd like you to do is take some deep breaths with me. In and out. In and out. Good. Now tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. We're given everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume, we destroy like we're parasitic. Science tells us that it's suicide and still we commit. I'm not sick, we are sick. We are standing on a cliff in the name of progress. We jump off the precipice. I'm not sick, I'm the virus, you're the virus, hypocrite. How can you sit there with that smile on and tell me that I'm sick? Sick boy, looking for a fix, boy. Push it down in public, quick pose for the pic, boy. Record label meetings that commodify your gift, boy. Why you so upset? Don't you wanna be a rich boy? Fuck no, industry is cutthroat. I've been doing bits by myself, swimming backstroke, walking on a tightrope, rapping with a slit throat. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people evolve, we're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told. Counterintelligence, a sight to behold. Rape the earth of all resources and we bleed it for gold. And we bleed it for wealth, we bleed it for fame. But when you bleed it, can you tell me what the fuck will remain? And I'm bleeding myself, I bleed the
Oh, heck yes. There's so much here, you guys. Sorry, I'm gonna like make this mic, the gain's gonna be out of control up in here. Yo, oh my gosh. There's so flippin' much. This is so good. That beat goes hard, by the way. Can we just talk about that beat for a second? And I love that choir, that almost childlike, feminine, higher ranged choir going on in the background. I need to look up the lyrics so I can figure out what they're singing, if it is something they're singing, unless it's just vocalization. I don't know yet. But they are playing or singing in the background. Almost chant like, really dope, but it goes so hard with the beat. His rapping is epic, and I'm really getting even more of that NF vibe. And when I say NF or Eminem or all these people that we might refer to when we see similarities, please understand I'm not comparing in the sense of who's better or worse. I'm using it as a literary form, comparing and contrasting to find similarities and differences, not to compare in the sense of, oh, he's just like them. Ren is in his own lane, and it's important for me to say that because when you, and I'll keep going, actually I might go back or start over, I don't know yet, this is so epic. When you are an artist, okay, and people hear you sound like someone or they see the influences, sometimes it can be a compliment, right? When I would sing and people would say, oh, you sound like such and such, that would be flattering because these were artists that I either admired or that I liked. But then, of course, over the course of time, as you're finding your own place and identity in the world, in life, in your art, you want to be unique. So I think it's when we use reference points, sometimes it helps us because it gives us a sense of familiarity, and stereotypes and boxes give us a sense of control, but sometimes they also give us a language. Labels can be destructive, but they can also be helpful because it allows us to name something, to communicate to the other what we mean. And when it comes to his style, I'm seeing those similarities, but I'm saying this more from a place of fondness, as a compliment and as like a, yo, this is dope. Not in the sense of comparing, because Ren is in his own flippin' lane. The level of the skill that he raps with, but the level of psychological substance that he's bringing in here is phenomenal. And the word plays that he integrates here is off the charts. I want to keep going and then we're going to talk. I already said a lot. I want to actually go back. This is just crazy. This is not a long video. It's like 3 minutes. Let me go back to, where was it? Where are we going to go? Where he gets up. Right where he gets up.
We consume, we destroy like we're parasitic. Science tells us that it's suicide and still we commit. I'm not sick, we are standing on a cliff in the name of progress. We jump off the precipice. I'm not sick, I'm the virus, you're the virus, hypocrite. How can you sit there with that smile on and tell me that I'm sick? Sick boy, looking for a fix, boy. Push it down in public, quick pose for the pic, boy. Record label meetings that commodify your gift, boy. Why you so upset? Don't you wanna be a rich boy? Fuck no, industry is cutthroat. I've been doing bits by myself, swimming backstroke, walking on a tightrope, rapping with a slit throat. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people evolve, we're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told. Counterintelligence, a sight to behold. Rape the earth of all resources and we bleed it for gold. And we bleed it for wealth, we bleed it for fame. But when you bleed it, can you tell me what the fuck will remain? And I'm bleeding myself, I bleed in my brain. While I'm bleeding, I'm the reason, cause I'm doing the same.
Freaking ridiculously good. This is nuts. Oh my gosh, I want to like just listen. That beat goes so hard, I just want to keep listening to it. Dun 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 dun, which totally, oh snap, that dun 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 da 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 dun dun. It has a little bit of that vibe, that childlike playground rhyme, which makes for a fantastic hook. Dun 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 da 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 dun dun. It has this, when kids are playing and they're mocking another, it gives me that vibe. The passion and anger and aggression that he raps with here is so good, so good. Bringing in a lot of the emotion, which really adds to the message he's trying to convey. So where do I begin? And I hope I don't miss too much, dang, man. The fact that he is like in that basement vibe room again with, I don't know what that is to the left. Is that like an old heater or a piece of a wall or a bench? It's just run down. The walls are nasty, falling apart. The floor is dirty. That gross horror movie like sink in the corner with the mirror that he later looks into to see his reflection. The light, that flickering neon light, total just eerie, creepy, mental institution horror movie vibe. Perfect and fitting. Neat that he spells boy B-O-I. Interesting. B-O-I, when you look up what it means, it's an alternate spelling of the word boy, B-O-Y, used to describe boys, but also men, girls, women, and things that aren't even human. In the mid to late 1990s, B-O-I, boy, came to mean a more sensitive form of masculinity, as it was taken up by skateboarding, rave, and eventually emo scenes. It was also adopted by young women, some of whom identified as gay, and then it spread in the 2000s for young, hip, genderqueer, and trans individuals who presented as masculine. And then since then, it's kind of moved into the larger LGBTQ culture, possibly. So I wonder if that's, a play here, not just to spell it B-O-Y, but B-O-I, to cover a wider range of people that may identify with that word, or to give that play on the outcast, right? Where from this art, according to this resource, where it kind of originated from. The more feminine side of men, maybe those that are mocked, maybe those that are dismissed as not boys, B-O-Y. I'm not sure, but interesting that was happening. The whole setting really fitting. We see it, that feel in his video clip, High REN. And in High REN, where there was two lamps and they were more warm in their light, here in Sick Boy, it's that neon white, colder light. So it's getting even darker, it's getting even more intense. And then the neon letters spelling out Sick Boy. The beat, like I said, goes hard. That choir in the background, that just supports the whole thing. And then the way that he starts with it really gives off. At first, I thought he's about to hurl. He's about to throw up, like as if he's sick. But then it switches to more of that mentally ill, unstable, I'm about to lose it. And she starts with High REN. Crazy way to start. So fitting. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you. And his voice switches back to the voice we would hear in that High REN, where he had that internal struggle with himself. And one of you commented very well that, though I talked a lot about the existential fears and death anxieties, and I came at it from more of an existential theory standpoint in my review of High REN, one of you commented very well that there's definitely also a lot of thematics about anxiety and depression, and I agree with that for sure. And here, too, we see tackling mental illness, mental health, which I think that's one of the reasons why REN is so relatable to so many of us, because either we've been there or we get it, and we love the fact that he's not shying away from the heavy and dark stuff. So his voice switches from that, ill, angry, to the more kind, calm Ren that says, "Thank you for seeing me." The hair of the therapist. I want to go to the therapist now. She seems to be either some medical medical practitioner, a counselor, a therapist. And I know this is a sensitive topic for some of you, because some of you have been really done wrong by either the medical industry, be it through misdiagnosis, or someone who has, or maybe you were done wrong through therapy and counseling. And I'm so sorry if that's what's happened to you, because you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be treated as human. You deserve for someone to care for you as a human being, not as if you're some project or as if you're some case that needs to be figured out. What was interesting is that she was, I guess, meant to represent a counselor, therapist, a practitioner. But even the way that her hair was interesting. I've learned that the way we carry our hair can sometimes say something about us, right? For example, if we carry it open, maybe more unconventional and open and relaxed, versus if we have it in a tight bun. I'm not saying that is definitely what it represents. Okay, you could have someone who's really lighthearted and extroverted who happens to put their hair up in a bun. I'm not saying that the second you see someone with their hair up in a bun, this now means they're uptight, and anyone wearing their hair down is whatever, laissez-faire, you know. I'm just saying that sometimes that can reflect the inner state of a person, the way what we do with our hair, what we do with our face. So I find it interesting that she had her hair clipped up. So you know how sometimes you will find people that do their hair when they go to an interview, they're trying to look professional on the job, but it looked messy, like that one strand hanging down. So it was like partly up, giving off that professional therapist vibe, but at the same time hanging down, not quite put together, not really fully up, not fully down. It was confusing, if you will. And of course, keep in mind, the observer influences the observation. I'm bringing in my perceptions. I'm not saying this is what it is. These are my interpretations. Then the way that she would grin and just engage with him, I personally didn't see any compassion. I didn't see a warm hand or a loving person that says, I want to help you. It was very much like constantly looking at the paper, very formal, very professional, not personal at all. And I wonder if this is also a reflection of how he has been treated, his feelings about having been misdiagnosed. And I wonder if that's relatable to many of you where you have been hurt in the medical industry or in therapy and counseling, where you couldn't get the help you needed, or you felt dismissed, or you were hurt in some kind of way. It could be someone that was supposed to care for you, a parent, a caregiver, a guardian who hurt you, abused you, or didn't meet your needs. You know, I think there's a lot of symbolism here, and there's a lot of personal experience Ren brings to the table, but it's powerful because it's relatable to many of us. She comes across with this arrogance, this grin, this smile that he even talks about in his rap, talks about him taking his pills, and we'll go back and look at the lyrics in more detail, but almost like this idea of just keep taking your pills, just be quiet, which also is interesting because that's what Ren was saying to himself in High Ren, just dismissing his feelings, just wanting to numb himself with pills. Then what's crazy is that at times it switches to her in the pig mask, almost as if the therapist, this counselor, whatever she's supposed to be, is the pig. And what's crazy is that she had blood all over herself. At one point, this split scene of a knife, I believe, to his neck, as if he's being slaughtered, which is weird because pigs are usually the ones being carried to the slaughter. So for it to be the pig that does the slaughtering, there's a lot of symbolism here, right? These people that have done him wrong are being the pigs, the pig doing the slaughtering instead of being slaughtered. A pig in itself is an interesting animal because in some cultures and religions, it represents something of impurity, right? Jewish people, Muslims, they don't eat pig because it's not considered kosher. Then others say, actually pigs are pretty clean animals. They wallow in the mud to cool themselves down because they can't sweat, but they're actually really clean. We know that pigs eat all kinds of stuff, all kinds of things. Then in the Chinese culture and Chinese art, they actually represent sustenance and wealth. Then it is said that people born under the zodiac pig represent maybe more naive, over-reliant, self-indulgent, gullible, materialistic, which is interesting because he talks about consumerism and materialism, both in the trailer and here. He's talking about our society. Even in the trailer, he talks about that, how we're just consuming and we're on the top of the food chain. We are intelligent. We have those feet to carry us. We have a brain to think, but we walk off a cliff. And then it switches, even in the trailer, to nature and reminds us of the need for, he speaks of homeostasis and the need to be symbiotic with nature, being part of the whole. We're all part of the network and we can mutually help and benefit one another. And when you when you rely on a counselor, a therapist, you rely on a medical provider, right? You need to be able to trust them. You want to believe that when someone diagnoses you, you can trust them. But then to find out almost half a decade later that actually you were misdiagnosed and that everything you've been either pumping into your system or the approaches you've tried and that internal battle that you've been going through was based on the completely wrong diagnosis, that will, to me, I believe, for many, can really trigger serious betrayal, trauma, and pain. Because when everything you've believed, not only about the world around you, but about yourself, comes crumbling and is in question now, you have to start from zero. Who are you? And when you're an adult and you're already developed well enough to understand certain complexities, that's very traumatic because now you have to start from zero and you question everything. You question everyone. Interesting that he even says, we're sick, right? Not I'm sick, we're sick. And we're going to go through the lyrics just a little bit more in just a second. But then also something I want to point out, and I hope I'm not talking too fast. I'm so excited and just mesmerized with this. What he talks about in the music industry and not wanting to be part of it is really, really dope. I find that even with artists like Tom MacDonald, who are not afraid to call out the industry and talk about things that are heavy and hard, we find that in certain metal music, right, where hard topics are discussed. And I think that's what's endearing. And so, endearing, and not only endearing, that's not even strong enough of a word. It is empowering. It is refreshing in a day and age where a lot seems fake. To deal with hard topics. That is what's so powerful, but doing it in such a skilled way. And it's also interesting because he does talk about that in High REN when he has that internal dialogue where he is being criticized by his alternate self, if you will, that he hasn't made it. You know, who is he anyways? No Oprah interviews, no Grammys. And he responds to himself saying, it's changing people's lives like my music matters. So for him to refer to that again here is really interesting too. And so this therapist is reading out this emotional state, but the way that she gestures, her facial expressions is very much like this is how it is, and it's very arrogant and unkind. And then we have this snippet of him being slaughtered by a pig, the pig covered in blood. Again, really crazy since pigs are usually the ones that are slaughtered. #bacon. Then he starts rapping and he gets so angry. He gets up, he throws the table. This turns into the rap, which is phenomenal. Sick boy, sick boy. White noise, quick fix, snake oil. I'm about to break boy. What a shame. He's in pain. Take another pill. Is so dismissive, almost like, oh, what a shame, too bad. Feed that, right? Just keep taking the pill, right? This misdiagnosis, not dealing with. And I do feel like that from a psychological standpoint, sometimes is really an issue. I was just watching one of those, hospital doctor shows where this young man, this boy actually, who had lost his father, was so medicated by the school psychologist, he wasn't even able to talk to this other psychologist and counselor because he was so drugged up, and he had been very violent in an incident at school. And for that reason, they felt like, he had to stay on this medication, and they had to go to court because they were saying that the student would not be allowed back in school, in any public school, without being medicated due to this incident of rage. And so this psychologist at the hospital was fighting for this boy to be weaned off of the medication for a while, to be able to work through some of the stuff really going on. And long story short, it turned out this boy actually blamed himself for his father's death, and he had this moment of rage at school because this other kid was bullying him and making fun of the death of his father and wishing him death. And so diving deeper, the conclusion to me was they had to get to the root of it. I'm not saying medication doesn't have its place. It's life-saving for many, and there is a place for it, mentally speaking, for physical ailments, and there's no shame in it. Thankfully, we're moving more to a place where mental health is more a common topic, where there's less shame in getting a counselor, talking to someone, getting medication, but there's still stigmas. There are still stigmas on it in certain areas, and depending on with who you grow up, the religious circles or cultural circles. And then you, of course, have situations nowadays where it's the other extreme, where I was sad the other day because I saw these videos of Karens, and I feel like that's a trend that has become really unhealthy, just recording everybody on camera. And everybody that acts crazy is a Karen now, and that's become like a slur, if you will. And I noticed that there was not a lot of, at least that's what I perceived, there was not a lot of compassion for these people, not to excuse what they were doing. Some of the things they do and the things they scream about and lose their crap about is really crazy. It's nonsense. But some of these people are having breakdowns. They could be very normal people doing good, and they went through God knows what, and they snap, and now they're recorded, and this little snippet of their life where they lost it now seems to be that label that is slapped onto them. Oh, what a Karen. And we don't know what that person went through. And there's, at least to me, I'm not seeing a lot of compassion. But these are people hurting, and these are snippets, sometimes out of context, that are being put on the World Wide Web, labels that are being slapped on these people. But then you could have someone that says they want to be a lamp, and they're going to get millions of followers and people applauding it. And that is what is a little bit of a concern to me when it comes to mental health, that we have things that are definitely not healthy, out of balance, where I'm going to use another example, body image, right? one extreme is to expect men and women to look a certain way and to put a pressure on women to have a certain shape, and people starving themselves to death to be pretty. That is an exaggeration. But then if we're not careful, we swing to the other extreme where there's people groups that want to create body positivity for obesity. And and some people are afraid to say this is not healthy. To me, there has to be a balance when it comes to mental health. Starving ourselves to be pretty is one extreme that's unhealthy and toxic. The other extreme is to be morbidly obese and to expect people to now call that attractive or to praise that for the sake of body positivity. There's a difference between not shaming people, which we shouldn't. There's a difference between not saying to somebody, oh, you're gross or you're fat, or the other extreme is to be expected to now find that attractive and say, oh, yay, that's supposed to be great, don't shame me. No, there is something called healthy and unhealthy. There are things that are not good. And I feel sometimes, at least media will make it look that way. Now we're at a place where it's like this or that extreme. Those who shame a person who had a breakdown for one day and was caught on camera, out of context, but then will follow people by the millions who may or may not be really dealing with internal issues, but they're looking for external affirmation. And we're praising and romanticizing mental illness. And so there's these extremes we see on media, the pendulum swinging left and right, light and darkness and extremes. And again, the media will maybe presents it that way so they can keep us divided and keep everybody in, oh my gosh, shock mode, right? That's what gets the views and the money. But I feel like when you have someone actually dealing with mental illness and they've been misdiagnosed for so long and they were maybe told they were crazy or they were told something's not right in their brain, when all along there was nothing wrong with their brain. There was just either a chemical imbalance or something was wrong in their body. I could see that causing very significant betrayal trauma for some, questioning your identity, your sense of reality, and realizing, wait a minute, this is not me that's sick. We're sick. The system is sick. Complications with the medication, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation. That's when he's speaking to himself in the mirror, yelling, I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet up on the ground. Wah. I've been screaming. I've been fighting. But I never make a sound. I could totally see why so many of you can relate to this. He's talking about heavy stuff and he's not afraid to really call that out. And she goes back to just, all right, so what I propose is we talk about the experiences from the past. Let's talk about your childhood. And it flickers between her and the pig. That is something we know very often from therapy, depending on what type of school of thought the therapist works and operates from. You may have that. People that want to dive deep into your childhood, depending on what approach they use, if they're more along the Freudian line or Jung, or depending on the school of thought that has shaped their work, their therapy sessions. And I think that too is a matter of balance, right? It's important to go back and see where some of the things we struggle with come from. For sure, sometimes we can really heal by looking at the wound. Sometimes wounds can't heal until they come to the light and the fresh air. And we need to deal with where this is coming from. There's also a need to focus on the present and the future. I wonder if he's bringing this in because many know therapy to be that. Oh, let's talk about your childhood. And I wonder if for some, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think in the comments below? I wonder if for some that is feels dismissive sometimes. Sometimes it can be very powerful to look at where things come from, why we are the way we are, and to go back and dig a little deeper. But it's such a cliche, if you will, approach to many. I think when they think therapy, they think, oh, let's deal with my mommy, daddy issues. And I wonder if that's a hint to feeling like the real issue is not being addressed. Sometimes the issue is from our childhood and those things. But I wonder if for some, this cliche approach that many know therapy to be, what comes to mind, even the pig, then back to the pig mask. Breathe in, breathe out. It's very much typical counseling, typical therapy. Let's talk about your childhood, let's breathe. And I wonder if for some, that's just this idea of it's just going through the motions. It's not really personal. It's not really helping. Is that possible? He says, I feel like it's not me. It's the world that we're given. We're given everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume it like we're parasitic. Science tells us that it's suicide, but we still commit it. Like just powerful rhymes and literary art here. Phenomenal. Gets up in her face, really angry. Just so much emotion. And then he's signing all these papers that people are handing to him, almost like he's famous, signing autographs laughs for his fans and such, speaking of the music industry, talking about he doesn't want to be part of it because it's cutthroat, which also is interesting to talk about swimming backstroke, because earlier he talked about feeling like he's drowning. Oh my gosh, I feel like he's really giving us insight into that struggle from being misdiagnosed, going through the motions with therapists, being told he's sick, realizing it's the world around him, his way maybe of processing this misdiagnosis, this betrayal, if you will, even if it wasn't ill intent and it was an honest mistake. I don't know the background story to what led to the misdiagnosis and why, but it nonetheless will lead to a lot of hurt and devastation and frustration, because everything he went through and all these approaches he was trying, be it from medication to therapy to all these different things he did to deal with what he thought his issue was. When you come through something like that, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a sense of just frustration and desperation, because it's years you can't get back. It feels like wasted time. What I love about Ren and about his approach is that I think the way that he is so emotionally intelligent and self-aware, it's not going to be wasted time. He's gonna and is already and has been working through this, so where he can make the best out of it. Where these years where he's been through this, where he was misdiagnosed and he felt like he was a sick boy, right? Dealing with the pressure, dealing with expectations, dealing with, what he wants or doesn't want to be towards his fans, the music industry, trying to promote his skill, feeling like he's drowning, mental health, anxiety, depression. I mean, that boy has been through the ringer, and I think many of you can relate. Phenomenal, by the way, how he raps with his mimics and gestures, so animated, so passionate, crazy and intense with the blood on his throat in the end. Talking about being complacent, really this beautiful approach, a beautiful, profound, artistic approach to deal with his own depression and anxiety, his own process of pain, of feeling like a sick boy, maybe being looked at as a sick boy, right? While all the fans want his autographs and the music is so cutthroat, it's also a very hard place to be on a platform and then be diagnosed with an illness and realize it was a different illness and now having to go through doctors and it's on display for the whole world. You don't want to be known for just being a sick boy. You don't want to just people to look at you like, oh, that's the sick boy, and be dismissed or pitied or looked at through that lens. You want to be looked at for who you are, which is all of you. Those are the sick days and the healthy days. That's the darkness and the light, like we see in REN. Loved for every part of you. And so he's really talking about all these heavy topics, the music industry, this pressure, his own depression and anxiety. But I find that it's so powerful because even still, he is addressing something that's bigger than just himself, reminding us, even in the trailer, so beautifully done, reminding us we need to be symbiotic. We need to realize that we're connected, that we can balance one another out and we can benefit from one another. We're part of a system, the way that Earth is connected, the way the ecosystem is connected. And I think there's a lot of healing when we realize, for one, we're not alone. Two, we are part of a whole. In this life we live, the legacy, it's a ripple effect, right? Even though you may never remember me, my name, or what I've done, maybe I will have touched someone else's life and they will touch someone else's life instead. Even if no one ever remembers my name, the things that I do and say, if I choose wisely, can have a ripple effect. Even the bad things we do have a ripple effect. And that goes for those who came before me. I've been shaped through the things people have done and said. And some of that is things I remember, people I remember. Some might be subconscious. Some might be influences that I don't even realize or I'm aware of, because those who have shaped me have been shaped and they have been shaped. And it's this ripple effect. And we are able to project ourselves into the future, which is comforting in the face of death anxiety, by knowing we are part of a bigger system. We are part of something beautiful, something glorious, like he says in his trailer. I think he calls it a glorious machine. And so dealing with his own hurt, putting on paper really honestly and raw what he has gone through, I could see that also being really relatable to many of you. Let me know, what does this song mean to you? What did you think? I probably missed some things, but this was so flippin' awesome. This whole beat is sick. It's just so good. His facial expressions, the passion, the anger, the hard topics, his cadences, rhythms, his literary art. It was awesome. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I love this. I'm really enjoying Ren's music and I'm excited to check out more. I hope you know today that you are loved, and I am so sorry where you've been hurt by therapists or counselors, by parents or caregivers, where you feel like not all of you was lovable, or you felt like you you were being led to the slaughter, or maybe you were drowning and nobody heard you. No, you're seen and you're loved. I want you to know that you are loved, all of you, the dark and the light, the hard days and the good days, in sickness and in health. You are loved. You are so flippin' loved. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment where you're watching from. What does this mean to you? What did I miss? What kind of symbolism and thoughts and interpretations are you gathering from this art? I will see you on the next ride. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and check out the links below. Ayo! Oh, and make sure to go subscribe to REN. Support homeboy. Till then.